We're going to continue with, as the title says, the two kingdoms, the split between Judah and Israel. And it's all due to the sin of Solomon. All right, so this is where we see the divide between blacks and Latinos. This is the official divide. There was always some tension, but and of course the differences in physical characteristics, at least as we know them today, would come much later, and we might get into that at some point, not tonight, but we're going to go ahead and get into it. Start with 1 Kings chapter 11. We're going to see what built up to the split and then the split itself. So not too much, but still heavy and heavy impact on the rest of the whole Bible is what we're going to get into tonight. 1 Kings 11, starting with verse 1. But I am going to make sure that there are no technical difficulties. Make sure that my audio is working just fine. It may not be. Let's see. Let's see how this audio is working. Okay, well that was... Alright, all praise to the Most High. It does appear to be working just fine, and we'll get into it. It's 1 Kings 11, start with verse 1. But King Solomon loved many strange women, many women who were not of his people, together with the daughter of Pharaoh, right? Because the daughter of Pharaoh was the first one, and that was more as a political message, right? But he loved these strange women. Women of the Moabites, that's your Chinese, Ammonites, Japanese, Edomites, that's your white women, Zidonians, Africans, and Hittites, again, Africans. Of the nations concerning which the Lord said unto the children of Israel, ye shall not go in to them, neither shall they come in unto you, for surely they will turn away your heart after their gods. Solomon clave unto these in love. And you see, that's exactly what ended up happening. And that's what we're about to read right now. And he had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines, right? So 700 of them were classified as princesses. The other 300 were concubines, all right? Way too many women. And his wives turned away his heart. And he started worshiping other gods. All right? For it came to pass when Solomon was old that his wives turned away his heart after other gods, and his heart was not perfect with the Lord his God, as was the heart of David his father. So Solomon got complacent. The Lord gives Solomon everything. So then Solomon got complacent. He got bored with it. He said, "What y'all talking about with that Molech, with that Chemosh? All right, what's y'all's idols that y'all worshiping? Let me see what that's about. What's these rituals, these pagan rituals y'all do? Let me see what that's about." All right, verse 5. For Solomon went after Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Zidonians, and after Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites. And Solomon did evil in the sight of the Lord, and went not fully after the Lord, as did David his father. Right, because David had his sins that he did, right? Especially the incident with Uriah the Hittite. But David never worshipped other gods. All right, he never turned to idols, and that's what Solomon did. Verse 7. Then did Solomon build a high place for Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, in the hill that is before Jerusalem, and for Molech, the abomination of the children of Ammon. And likewise did he for all his strange wives, which burnt incense and sacrificed unto their gods. All right. So he built churches, he built temples, he built synagogues, mosques for all of these fake gods, all of these idols. Verse 9, and the Lord was angry with Solomon, because his heart was turned from the Lord God of Israel, which had appeared unto him twice, and had commanded him concerning this thing, that he should not go after other gods, but he kept not that which the Lord commanded. Wherefore the Lord said unto Solomon, forasmuch as this is done of thee, and thou hast not kept my covenant and my statutes which I have commanded thee, I will surely rend the kingdom from thee, and will give it to thy servant. We will read about that servant later in this chapter. Notwithstanding, in thy days I will not do it for David thy father's sake, but I will rend it out of the hand of thy son. I'm going to read about that as well. Howbeit, I will not rend away all the kingdom, but will give one tribe to thy son. for David my servant's sake, and for Jerusalem's sake, which I have chosen. All right, and we'll get into the nitty-gritty of that in the next chapter. Verse 14. And the Lord stirred up an adversary unto Solomon, Hadad the Edomite. He was of the king's seed in Edom. For it came to pass, when David was in Edom, and Joab, the captain of the host, was gone up to bury the slain, after he had smitten every male in Edom, for 6 months did Joab remain there with all Israel, until he had cut off every male in Edom, that Hadad fled, he and certain Edomites of his father's servants with him, to go into Egypt. Hadad being yet a little child. All right, so Hadad and all these Edomites fled whenever Joab was wiping them out. All right. He came to Egypt. Let's see, verse 18. And they arose out of Midian and came to Paran. And they took men with them out of Paran and came to Egypt, unto Pharaoh, king of Egypt, which gave him a house and appointed him victuals and gave him land. All right. So we can pull up a map for this. We're going to get into maps a little later, but we can pull up maps for this. Let's see. This one's a little better suited for this one. Because you had Edom was like right here. That's where they were, and even up until right here. So you could say like this whole region. And to flee into Paran would be like Sinai. And obviously to go into Egypt would be crossing the Red Sea. Alright. We'll leave that map. We'll come back to it. Okay, verse 19. And Hadad found great favor in the sight of Pharaoh, so that he gave him to wife the sister of his own wife, the sister of Tahpenes, the queen. And the sister of Tahpenes bare him Genubath, his son, whom Tahpenes weaned in Pharaoh's house. And Genubath was in Pharaoh's household among the sons of Pharaoh. And when Hadad heard in Egypt that David slept with his fathers, and that Joab, the captain of the host, was dead, Hadad said to Pharaoh, Let me depart, that I may go to my own country. Then Pharaoh said unto him, But what hast thou lacked with me, that, behold, thou seekest to go to thine own country? And he answered, Nothing, howbeit let me go in any wise. So remember this part about Hadad, about how he fled into Egypt and then waited until his enemies were dead, then he came back out. Verse 23. And God stirred him up another adversary, Rezin the son of Eliada, which fled from his lord Hadadezer, king of Zobah. And he gathered men unto him, and became captain over a band, when David slew them of Zobah. And they went to Damascus, and dwelt therein, and reigned in Damascus. Alright, so you're going to see this at any time that a leader or a ruler is taken out of position. There's what's called a vacuum of power. Alright, and since Solomon was not righteous in his days, those who his father had defeated, who David had defeated in battle, that left these vacuums of power that these other people filled. All right, and in this instance, Rezin, the son of Eliada. Verse 25. And he was an adversary to Israel all the days of Solomon, beside the mischief that Hadad did. And he abhorred Israel and reigned over Syria. All right, so if Solomon was in the spirit, if Solomon would have remained righteous and not served other gods, then all this would have been handled. He would have been wise enough to handle these situations. All right. Or the Lord wouldn't allow them to come up in the first place. All right. Starting with verse 26. We're picking up, rather. And Jeroboam the son of Nebat, an Ephrathite of Zereda. All right. So it's well known here that Ephrathite in this context means Ephraimite. It's the same thing. All right. Northern Kingdom. So-called Puerto Rican today, if he was here. Of Zereda. Solomon's servant. So this is Solomon's servant that it was talking about. Who's going to get the kingdom. Whose mother's name was Zeruiah, a widow woman. Even he lifted up his hand against the king. And this was the cause that he lifted up his hand against the king. Solomon built Millo, and repaired the breaches of the city of David his father. And the man Jeroboam was a mighty man of valor. And Solomon, seeing the young man that he was industrious, he made him ruler over all the charge of the house of Joseph. Right, so he put him over the northern kingdom. And it came to pass at that time when Jeroboam went out of Jerusalem that the prophet Ahijah the Shilonite found him in the way, and he clad himself with a new garment, and they too were alone in the field. All right, we've been over Shiloh plenty of times. I'll point out where it is, just because why not? We want to pull this map up eventually anyway. But yeah, right here in Ephraim, you see Shiloh. That's where Ahijah is from. He's an Ephraimite, as well as Jeroboam. All right, so let's go back. Okay. So Ahijah is meeting with Jeroboam in a field. And Ahijah caught the new garment that was on him and rent it in 12 pieces, right? So he took off this garment that that Jeroboam had just got, brand new, got it, ripped it up into 12 pieces. And he said to Jeroboam, "Take thee 10 pieces, for thus saith the Lord, the God of Israel, Behold, I will rend the kingdom out of the hand of Solomon, and will give 10 tribes to thee." All right. But he shall have one tribe for my servant David's sake, and for Jerusalem's sake, the city which I have chosen out of all the tribes of Israel. All right. So that one tribe that was left to Solomon and his lineage was the tribe of Benjamin. Judah's going to side with Judah no matter what. All right. But that tribe that was left to him was Benjamin. And he said for Jerusalem's sake. Notice he said for Jerusalem's sake. Because you see where Jerusalem is? On the border of Judah and Benjamin. All right. So if Benjamin would have turned against Judah, Jerusalem would have been divided, as it is today, parted. But that's not how God wanted it. All right. Benjamin and Judah became the southern kingdom, and the rest of these tribes, Ephraim, Manasseh, Gad, Reuben, Issachar, Zebulun, Asher, Naphtali, even Dan and Simeon. Those are the 10 tribes, all right, that it's talking about. Let's go back. Jerusalem say, verse 33, because that they have forsaken me and have worshipped Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Zidonians, Chemosh, the god of the Moabites, Milcom, the god of the children of Ammon, and have not walked in my ways to do that which is right in mine eyes, and to keep my statutes and my judgments, as did David his father. Howbeit, I will not take the whole kingdom out of his hand, but I will make him prince all the days of his life for David, my servant's sake, whom I chose, because he kept my commandments and my statutes. All right? So he said, look, it's not going to happen in Solomon's days, not while Solomon's alive. That's what Ahijah is specifying to Jeroboam, not while Solomon's alive. All right? But I will take the kingdom out of his son's hand and will give it unto thee, even 10 tribes. And we just went through those tribes, the northern kingdom tribes. All right? And unto his son will I give one tribe, that David my servant may have a light always before me in Jerusalem, the city which I have chosen to put my name there. And I will take thee, and thou shalt reign according to all that thy soul desireth, and shalt be king over Israel. And it shall be, if thou wilt hearken unto all that I command thee, and will walk in my ways, and do that which is right in my sight, to keep my statutes and my commandments, as David my servant did, that I will be with thee, and build thee a sure house, as I built for David, and will give Israel unto thee. All right? So we see here that God give the same proposition to Jeroboam as he did to David. He promised David, look, if you follow me, there will always be a man on the throne of your lineage. Always. All right? He's giving the same proposition to Jeroboam. Let's see if Jeroboam follows through with that. Verse 39. And I will for this afflict the seed of David, but not forever. Solomon sought therefore to kill Jeroboam, and Jeroboam arose and fled into Egypt, and Shishak, king of Egypt, was in Egypt until the death of... Jeroboam was in the death... No, excuse me. Jeroboam was in Egypt until the death of Solomon. And this Shishak they call Shoshank today. And we talked about that when we went into Egypt. But I do want to point out that even at this time, before the split even happened, God was saying, not forever. As in, It's not always going to be like this. There is going to be a reconciliation one day. All right? And also I want to point out, it says Solomon sought therefore to kill Jeroboam. How would Solomon know if Ahijah and Jeroboam met alone in the field? Because Jeroboam went around running his mouth, talking about, I'm going to be king, I'm going to take the tribes from Solomon, and now Solomon, as a treasonous contender to the throne, of course he wants to take out Jeroboam. But it's of the Lord. So, as I said, Jeroboam went the same route as Hadad the Edomite, and that is run into Egypt, wait till the coast is clear, and then come back and exact your political revenge or whatever. Verse 41. And the rest of the acts of Solomon, all that he did, and all his wisdom, are they not written in the book of the Acts of Solomon, a book which we do not have. Do not try to seek out that book. I'll put it plainly like that. And the time that Solomon reigned in Jerusalem over Israel was 40 years, and Solomon slept with his fathers and was buried in the city of David his father. And Rehoboam, his son, reigned in his stead. And I do want to get to this about Rehoboam, because the split happens under his watch. All right. Continuing the same story. Just the next chapter, 1 Kings 12. Start with verse 1. And Rehoboam went to Shechem, for all Israel were come to Shechem to make him king. All right. And we see Shechem. I know Shechem's on here. Where's Shechem? Right here. In the mountains of Ephraim and Manasseh. Like all this is like border between Ephraim and Manasseh. So let's go back. He's to be anointed king in Shechem. And it came to pass when Jeroboam the son of Nebat, who was yet in Egypt, heard of it, for he was fled from the presence of King Solomon, and Jeroboam dwelt in Egypt, that they sent and called him. And Jeroboam and all the congregation of Israel came and spake to Rehoboam, saying, Thy father made our yoke grievous. Now therefore make thou the grievous service of thy father, and his heavy yoke which he put upon us lighter, and we will serve thee. Alright, so if you remember the history that we talked about a couple weeks back, the building of the temple, the restoration of certain cities, the building of all the construction projects that Solomon oversaw, all those things took a heavy burden on the people. Not just the physical work, but also taxes from the people to fund all these projects, all right? They said, look, that's too much for us to bear, lighten it up a little bit, and all 12 tribes will serve you forever, all right? And he said unto them, Depart yet for 3 days, then come again to me, and all the people departed. Verse 6. And King Rehoboam consulted with the old men that stood before Solomon his father while he yet lived, and said, How do ye advise I may answer this people? All right, so these counselors of Solomon. Solomon was the wisest man who ever lived. So you have to wisest king. I'll put it like wisest king of Israel. So you have to only imagine how wise his counselors must have been, because he selected them. All right. So Rehoboam goes to them, how should I answer this people? Verse 7. And they spake unto him, saying, If thou wilt be a servant unto this people this day, and will serve them, and answer them, and speak good words to them, then they will be thy servants forever. Right? So they're saying, tell them what they want to hear. All right? Ease up on the taxes. Ease up on the burdens that you're putting on the people, and they will serve you forever. But he forsook the counsel of the old men, which they had given him, and consulted with the young men that were grown up with him, and which stood before him. So he asked his boys. Man, what should I tell the people? And he said unto them, What counsel give ye that we may answer this people, who have spoken to me, saying, Make the yoke which thy father did put upon us lighter? And the young men that were grown up with him spake unto him, saying, Thus shalt thou speak unto this people that spake unto thee, saying, Thy father made our yoke heavy, but make thou it lighter unto us. Thus shalt thou say unto them, My little finger shall be thicker than my father's loins. And now, whereas my father did lade you with a heavy yoke, I will add to your yoke. My father chastised you with whips, but I will chastise you with scorpions. All right, so they're like, you the king, go out there and assert your dominance. Man, force the people to comply. That's not how this works. Not with a great and mighty people like Israel. No, you got to be in righteousness for the people to follow you. And if they're gonna follow you in wickedness, it's short term. All right. Verse 12. So Jeroboam and all the people came to Rehoboam the third day, as the king had appointed, saying, "Come to me again the third day." And the king answered the people roughly, and forsook the old men's counsel that they gave him, and spake to them after the counsel of the young men, saying, "My father made your yoke heavy, and I will add to your yoke. My father also chastised you with whips, but I will chastise you with scorpions." Wherefore the king hearkened not unto the people, for the cause was from the Lord, that he might perform his saying, which the Lord spake by Ahijah the Shilonite unto Jeroboam the son of Nebat. Right. So this is how the Lord caused the split to happen, through Rehoboam being a fool, listening to his friends as opposed to the wise counsel. All right. Verse 16. So when all Israel saw that the king hearkened not unto them, the people answered the king, saying, "What portion have we in David? Neither have we inheritance in the son of Jesse. To your tents, O Israel. Now see to thine own house, David." So Israel departed into their tents. Yeah, so that's when all the so-called Latinos and American Indians said, "We ain't got nothing to do. We ain't got nothing to do with y'all." All right. David. All right. Verse 17. But as for the children of Israel, which dwelt in the cities of Judah, Rehoboam reigned over them, right? Because Judah's always going to stick with Judah. What other ruler are they going to appoint other than the lineage of David? At that time, David was the best that came out of Judah, so-called African Americans today. All right. Verse 18. Then King Rehoboam sent Adoram, who was over the tribute, meaning the tax collector, and all Israel stoned him with stones, and he died. Therefore King Rehoboam made speed to get him up to his chariot to flee to Jerusalem out of Shechem. All right. So Israel rebelled against the house of David unto this day, and the split is still noticeable unto this day. All right. But so yeah, the whole grievance that the Northern Kingdom tribes had with the king, had with Rehoboam and Solomon, is the taxes and the burden placed on the people. So now here comes Rehoboam. He still sends out the tax collector. The people killed him. They said, "We ain't giving you nothing." All right. Verse 20. And it came to pass when all Israel heard that Jeroboam was come again, that they sent and called him unto the congregation and made him king over all Israel. Right. So here you see Jeroboam being anointed king over the northern kingdom. There was none that followed the house of David, but the tribe of Judah only. So at that time, it was just Judah. And when Rehoboam was come to Jerusalem, he assembled all the house of Judah with the tribe of Benjamin. So here's where you see Benjamin get on board, right? So now here you have what is called today African Americans and what is called today West Indians, what is called today Jamaicans, all right? Caribbean blacks, that's what they're called today. You see them joining together and say, "We're going to fight for David." 184,000 chosen men, that's 180,000, which were warriors, to fight against the house of Israel to bring the kingdom again to Rehoboam, the son of Solomon. Right, so they was ready to go to war and take out Jeroboam and whoever was in their way. Verse 22. But the word of God came unto Shemaiah, the man of God, saying, "Speak unto Rehoboam, the son of Solomon, king of Judah, and unto all the house of Judah and Benjamin, and to the remnant of the people, saying, Thus saith the Lord, ye shall not go up, nor fight against your brethren, the children of Israel. Return every man to his house, for this thing is from me. They hearken therefore to the word of the Lord, and return to depart according to the word of the Lord." All right. So God sent the man of God, sent Shemaiah the prophet, to say, "Look, stop, don't go to war. These are your brothers. Don't go to war with them. All right. This divide is from God. All right. This split is from the Lord." So remember how Jeroboam was given the same proposition as David, as in, you follow after God, your lineage will be on the throne forever. Let's see what he does. Verse 25. Then Jeroboam built Shechem in Mount Ephraim and dwelt therein, right? Built it as the capital. And went out from thence and built Penuel. All right, let's see if we can find Penuel. Also sometimes referred to as Peniel. Yeah, Penuel is right here on the Jabbok. It's just across the Jordan from Shechem, as you can see here. All right. Let's get back to it. Built Shechem and Penuel, or Penuel. And Jeroboam said in his heart, now shall the kingdom return to the house of David. If this people go up to do sacrifice in the house of the Lord at Jerusalem, then shall the heart of the people turn again unto their Lord, even unto Rehoboam king of Judah. And they shall kill me, and go again to Rehoboam king of Judah. Alright, so now you see Jeroboam getting paranoid. Alright, he's getting paranoid. Point blank period. He said, if they keep the feast of God, then they'll go down to Jerusalem. And if they go down to Jerusalem, then they'll start serving Rehoboam again, and they'll kill me. Right? Just getting, going down a train of thought that is just careless and leads nowhere but to the spirit of fear, which we know God does not give. All right. Verse 28. Whereupon the king took counsel and made 2 calves of gold and said unto them, it is too much for you to go up to Jerusalem. Behold, thy gods, O Israel, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. Alright, so he made calves. He made golden calves. The first idolatry that the Israelites served coming out of Egypt. That golden calf that Aaron made for the people when Moses was actually in the mountain talking to God. The people had just seen God come down, but now they wanted to make calves. And the same thing happened here. He made calves of gold. And verse 29. And he set the one in Bethel, and the other put he in Dan. Alright? So let's look at the map. He's talking about, when it says Dan right here, it's talking about the city of Dan. Where is this at? Up here? Yeah. You see Dan right here, and where's Bethel? Bethel is down here on the, at the southernmost point of this divide. Alright, it's on the border between Ephraim and Benjamin. Alright. And I might as well pull up one of those maps. So yeah, this one we can see the divide is like right in here. That's about where the divide is. I'm pretty sure I got a map of it. Let's see. Do I see the 2 kingdoms split map? Unfortunately, I am not seeing it. Well, that's not great. But next week we're going to be continuing on this same thought, on this same narrative, I should say. And I'll have a map for you then that actually shows the divide between the 2 kingdoms. But anyway, he put the calves, the golden calves, the idols to worship, in Dan and Bethel. And this thing became a sin, for the people went to worship before the one, even unto Dan. And he made a house of high places, and made priests of the lowest of the people, which were not of the sons of Levi. So keep that in mind. Jeroboam rejected the Levite priests. Why is that? Because the Levites would convince the people to keep the commandments of God. And as we already saw, Jeroboam is getting paranoid and saying, oh, if the people keep the commandments of God, that means they're going to go down to Jerusalem to keep the feast. If they go down to Jerusalem, then they're going to start serving Rehoboam again, and then they're going to kill me, right? So Jeroboam is doing all this extra stuff on these crazy, paranoid, fearful thoughts, just so he can get the people to disobey the laws of God and keep himself in rulership. All right. Verse 32. And Jeroboam ordained a feast in the 8th month on the 15th day of the month, like unto the feast that is in Judah. Alright, so instead of the Feast of Tabernacles, he said, let's push that a month back, and we will keep this new feast that I've ordained in Bethel and Dan. And he offered upon the altar. So did he in Bethel, sacrificing unto the calves that he had made. And he placed in Bethel the priests of the high places which he had made. So he offered upon the altar which he had made in Bethel the 15th day of the 8th month, even in the month which he had devised of his own heart, and ordained a feast unto the children of Israel, and he offered upon the altar and burnt incense. So here we see the split, and immediately the Northern Kingdom, so-called Latinos and American Indians, lunged into idolatry. Immediately, just head first, diving into idolatry. All right. So we see here that it was the 2 tribes in the Southern Kingdom, and then 10 tribes in the Northern Kingdom. All right. But we see how the Levites were rejected by Jeroboam. All right. So let's see what happens to them in Chronicles. And this, I went to First Chronicles. I'm in Second Chronicles. But if you read First Chronicles, you will see a lot of it is about describing the Levites and their offices. All right. So let's go Second Chronicles. I believe it's 10. Yes, Second Chronicles 10. 11. Excuse me. Second Chronicles 11. Jump down to verse 13. And the priests and the Levites that were in all Israel resorted to him out of all their coasts. That him is Rehoboam. Alright? Verse 14. For the Levites left their suburbs and their possession, and came to Judah and Jerusalem, for Jeroboam and his sons had cast them off from executing the priest's office unto the Lord. Alright? So, not only was it a situation of we don't want to serve the Lord God of Israel, but it's also a situation of get out of here. Levites, leave your homes, get out of all the cities in the north, get out of all the Northern Kingdom cities. All right? Because the Levites didn't have any land. They had to stay in their own suburbs in every different city. All right? And again, you see these suburbs, the allotment of these suburbs. You see it in Joshua, and you see it in the Chronicles. All right. Verse 15. And he ordained him priests for the high places, and for the devils, and for the calves which he had made. And after them, out of all the tribes of Israel, such as set their hearts to seek the Lord God of Israel, came to Jerusalem to sacrifice unto the Lord God of their fathers. All right. So it's not just Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. Those are the 3 tribes that make up the Southern Kingdom. But as it also said, everyone who was a Northern Kingdom Israelites that knew that was wicked, they come down. They come down to Jerusalem so that they could serve the Lord. All right. And of course, we do see some exception with some Northern Kingdom prophets who try to correct the sins, like Elijah and Elisha were always going to the Northern Kingdom trying to correct their sins. But for just regular day folks who wanted to serve the Lord, they had to move, because the whole land, all Northern Kingdom, from its conception, was all idolatry. It was all idolatry. And we'll get into times in the Kings that talk about how even the Northern Kingdom Israelites who wanted to restore the people to righteousness and get rid of the wickedness in the land, even they were still in idolatry, because they go back to the calves that Jeroboam made, as opposed to going back to what was before that, which was the Most High. Verse 17. So they strengthened the kingdom of Judah and made Rehoboam the son of Solomon strong. 3 years. For 3 years they walked in the way of David and Solomon. All right. So there you see the Levites, when they came down, they made Rehoboam strong. They give him faith. They give him the laws of God. All right. So from here, I don't necessarily want to get into Jeroboam just yet, but we can touch on Rehoboam and what happened in his rulership, because we actually covered that pretty quickly. So yeah, I want to skip over chapter 13 because that's about Jeroboam. We'll get into Jeroboam next week when we talk about the house of Jeroboam and what happens there. I'll just talk about Rehoboam in verse 21 in 1 Kings chapter 14. We'll talk about Rehoboam. Alright. Verse 21. And Rehoboam, the son of Solomon, reigned in Judah. Rehoboam was 41 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 17 years in Jerusalem, the city which the Lord did choose out of all the tribes of Israel to put his name there. His mother's name was Naamah and Ammonitis. So even Rehoboam, the chosen heir of Solomon, was from the seed, or rather I should say from the womb of a strange woman, meaning a woman of the other nations, a heathen woman, a Japanese woman at that. Verse 22, to be specific. And Judah did evil in the sight of the Lord, and they provoked him to jealousy with their sins which they had committed, above all that their fathers had done. So here you see it start to get worse and worse. You go into the history of the kings, all right? And that time period, the people get very wicked and evil, all right? Verse 23. For they also built them high places and images and groves on every high hill and under every green tree. So this example that Solomon had set in his latter years of worshiping other gods, they just took that tenfold in the years that followed. All right. And there were also Sodomites in the land, and they did according to all the abominations of the nations which the Lord cast out before the children of Israel. So during Rehoboam's reign, we see how Israel is starting to become like everyone else. It didn't take long. All right. David and the early days of Solomon, we were separate. We were the ruling nation. But here you see how immediately it goes away during the reign of Rehoboam. Verse 25. And it came to pass in the 5th year of King Rehoboam that Shishak, king of Egypt, came up against Jerusalem. And again, in the historical record, this is Shoshank, I believe is his name. And he took away the treasures of the house of the Lord and the treasures of the king's house. He even took away all. So, pause right there. He took away everything. And he took away all the shields of gold which Solomon had made. And King Rehoboam made in their stead brazen shields and committed them unto the hands of the chief of the guard, which kept the door of the king's house. So he didn't even have no silver left to make the shields. He had to use brass. Alright? And it was so, when the king went into the house of the Lord, that the guard bare them and brought them back into the guard chamber. Alright, so you see, again, the fall off. You can clearly see it. Went from all gold everything to brass some things. Alright. Now the rest of the acts of Rehoboam and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Judah? This is what I wanted to get to, verse 30. And there was war between Rehoboam and Jeroboam all their days. Alright? That's what you start to see. The conflict between what would become so-called blacks, the kingdom of Judah, and what would become so-called Latinos and American Indians, the northern kingdom, the kingdom of Samaria. Alright? And Samaria is not even the capital yet. It's Shechem at this point, but Samaria becomes the capital of Ephraim, the northern kingdom. And Rehoboam slept with his fathers and was buried with his fathers in the city of David. His mother's name was Naamah and Ammonitis, and Abijam his son reigned in his stead. So we're not going to get into Abijam necessarily. I believe Abijam's still wicked. And that's what you see with all the kings. And I do want to read that real quick in Sirach. I think we've read it before. But I want to go ahead and get it again, just so we understand the context. All right. Yeah, it's not going to be right here. Perhaps the next chapter. No. Might be the next one. Yes. This is Sirach, or Ecclesiasticus, in the Apocrypha, chapter 49, verse 4. All, when it says all, it means all the kings, northern kingdom, southern kingdom, whatever, all the kings of Israel, except David and Hezekiah and Josiah, were defective. All right? So all the kings that you read about in the history were defective. All right, in one shape, form, or another. All right, usually it's in every facet. Just wicked all over. Sometimes you have some people with some good spots, but they don't serve the role that they were intended to serve, and that is lead the people in righteousness. For they forsook the law of the Most High, even the kings of Judah failed. All right, and that's what we'll see from the kings of Judah, is that all come from the seed of David, but only David, Hezekiah, and Josiah were righteous kings. The rest, they tried their best, but some of them did. Others, they're just wicked and evil. All right. So from there, we're gonna go ahead and bring it to a close. I know we didn't spend too much time, but it's very important when understanding the rest of the scriptures. All right. By the time you get to the books of Ezra, where the northern kingdom does not come back, but comes over here. We'll get into that at some point. And going all the way to the New Testament, where the reconciliation comes through Christ of the Jews and the Gentiles. All right. And then the scriptures say, or Paul says rather, in the letter to the Ephesians, he said, make both one, right? Jews and Gentiles. But if you just looking at that at face value, Gentiles, that's everybody, right? That's what that literally means, nations, right? So how can Jew and Gentiles just be two? That don't make no sense. But it makes a lot of sense whenever you look at it from, that's talking about Judah and Israel, Judah and Samaria, or Jerusalem and Samaria, Judah and Ephraim. All right, make those two one. All right, so we see that we see how this impacts the rest of the whole Bible and even history today. All right,